Welcome back. You're now watching the political segment on The Weekend Show. Earlier this year, bandits attacked the Abuja-Kaduna rail line and several Nigerians were abducted. Till date, some of the people are still in abduction. Just a couple of days ago, a video was released with some of the abductees being flogged. Just after that, there was an attack in a church in Owo in Osun State. Following that, there was also a prison break in the Kuje Medium Correctional Facility. And in the past week, we've heard of military checkpoints and military bases being attacked. Insecurity has been a conversation we have had on this show almost once every weekend throughout this year. The current administration of Muhammadu Buhari, a former military general, came on three bases. One, to fix insecurity. Two, to stop corruption. And three, to improve the economy. Nigerians are quite concerned that after 7 years, are we going back to where we were before he came in? What happens to those promises? Nigerians want to also know what's going on in the country. There are several circulars and messages going around the country about insecurity. We must give credit to the military and the defense agencies for the work which they are doing, and also our condolence to the families of people serving Nigeria who have lost their lives. The military has also reorganized their top hierarchy and reposted several people to different places to ensure that they increase and up the ante when it comes to defending the nation, and we do thank them for that. However, insecurity is still a problem, and it's quite unfortunate that it is now coming to the Federal Capital Territory, where we have the seat of government and also the president, who is a retired military general. We will be discussing insecurity in the FCT on today's political segment, and joining us we have
Ose Aneni, who is a social commentator, data analyst, and politician. Good morning. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Ose, thanks for joining us. And we say this as Nigerians. We don't want people to be scared. People want to live in peace. However, what's going on is actually going on. What's your take on the current level of insecurity in the FCT?
I think Nigerians have lived in a bubble. I call it maybe the goldfish mentality. We live in a bowl, and incidents happen, and we express alarm, and then a week later we forget the incidents. So I hear you referenced the Kuje prison break. Most people will not know that since 2015 we've had about 15 prison breaks. We've had almost 7,000 prisoners escape across the country, whether it's Lagos, whether it's FCT, whether it's Owerri, whether it's Benin City, where I'm from. All over the city, all over the country, we've been having these little incursions into our security. You spoke again about the highlight incident. So you speak about
the Abuja-Kaduna rail issue,
Abuja-Kaduna railway. You speak about Owo. But the reason why the Abuja-Kaduna railway happened was because we had literally ceded Abuja-Kaduna road network to bandits. People could no longer travel by road, and so a lot of people started traveling by rail. So we've seen over the past 5, 6, 7 years a gradual erosion of this sense of peace and security. Garrison cities have sprung up all around the nation, whether it's in Maiduguri or in Zamfara. We're now having it in Abuja, where we literally are surrounded by active cells of terrorists and bandits, and the only safety we have is within the city and within our homes. So it's a problem that has been steadily growing. If you recall, in 2014, 2015, when we had the suicide bombers striking in Abuja, these were isolated incidents. Boko Haram was located largely in the northeast and would send out these suicide bombers to cause chaos. But now we have active cells in the northwest and the north central, and when you say we shouldn't be scared, I think we should be scared. I think Nigerians should be worried, because from a security perspective, we are facing an existential threat. I also want to align with you when you commended the military and the armed forces and the sacrifices that all these brave men and women are giving every single day. Soldiers are being killed almost every single day, and they continue to man their posts. So we have to commend them. But we also have to point fingers maybe at the security architecture, the leadership coming from the presidents, who is the commander-in-chief, but also a dysfunction that occurs where you have a chief of defense staff that doesn't coordinate or control the junior, the less senior military heads of chiefs service, whether it's in the Army, Navy, or Air Force. So you have this dysfunction where the Army is doing something, the Air Force is doing something, and the Navy is doing something else, and there's no central command. So maybe that's also a part of the problem we're facing. I mentioned that specifically because the Chief of Defense Staff, General Irabo, he served as the theater commander for Operation Lafia Dole in 2016. And that was when we actually saw the most, the gains by the military when they pushed back Boko Haram most aggressively. And you would think that, when you promote him to the Chief of Defense Staff, you would also give him the responsibility of coordinating, the campaign against terrorism.
Would you say these issues that have been increasing could be a ripple effect of the silence from the government?
I think it's just again, I'll start from the top because we do have a president who is the commander-in-chief. And I think it's a multiplicity of factors. There's the economic factor. I think for the last 3 months, NNPC hasn't remitted any funds to the Federation account. So as a country, we're broke. So even if we wanted to recruit an understaffed security service, we don't have the money to pay them. We don't have the money to buy equipment for them. There's also this end-to-end problem we have where, even if the military or security services capture these people, you don't have the judiciary processing them, and you don't have them being remanded to custodial sentences and incarcerated in prisons. So I can't think, over the last 10 years, I can't think of any senior Boko Haram or ISWAP leader that has actually been captured, convicted, and jailed. So there's also a problem there. And then you also have the fact that, we focus on the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, but we also have these law enforcement agents at our borders that really aren't stopping these terrorists from getting personnel in, from getting drugs in, from getting equipment in. So when you have a failure where our borders are unpoliced, these people are able to recruit and resupply maybe a little bit more efficiently than we can.
Let's talk about capacity. And a lot of people have said this, that even with the security services, they don't have the capacity, they don't have the numbers to take care of the several issues across the country. Because I'm from Benue State, and we've been complaining about header farmer crisis. In the southeast, you have agitations. In the southwest, you have their own issues. And so even if they do their best, do you feel increasing the personnel of the police, of the army, would actually help to fix the security situation?
That's a very good question. I would say yes and no. So right now, I think the army is in every single state. They're actively deployed in every single state but one, I think. And I think the army strength is maybe 200,000 maximum, just approximating up. So you have a stretched military force who is not only doing their traditional role or playing their traditional role of protecting us from external threats and from terrorists, but they also engage in policing. And I think that's where the problem is. You have the military doing things that they were not trained to do. So in Abuja, you see a lot of military checkpoints internally, but typically that should be the role of the police. So when you talk about, I want us to separate the basic criminality from terrorism. And the military, if they focused on the terrorist threats, they wouldn't be understaffed. They are, I think the Nigerian army is probably one of the most capable armies on the continent. That's why you see us always leading peacekeeping efforts in other countries. But in Nigeria, I think because they are so effective, we deploy them to roles that they are not really suited for. So if there was going to be, and I always use these types of opportunities to plug restructuring, I think we should have state police. I think command and control should be devolved to the regions and the states. And then states and these state police forces should focus on local security threats and policing, while the military then focuses on its core mandate of protecting Nigeria's territorial integrity.
So as Andy said earlier, there's been lots of attacks and it's getting closer to the seat of power here in the FCT. What have been your reactions on the various attacks so far, particularly this week?
Personally, I don't go out. I avoid malls, I avoid places where typically you'd expect these terrorists to attack, hotels, markets. But that's a defensive strategy, and it's not a sustainable one. It's going to affect our businesses, it's going to affect our communities, and nobody wants to live in a cloud of fear. Yesterday was Friday, for instance. Many of my friends and myself, we didn't leave our homes because, we suspected that something might happen. I want to believe with the reorganization of the armed forces, we will see a little bit more energy devoted to this campaign against terrorism. If there's any comfort I want to give listeners or viewers, it's that Abuja was designed to resist coups, attacks, terrorist threats. So we are one of the most fortified cities in the world. It's rings of concentric circles that can be manned. You have defined exits and entry points that can be protected. So if you are in the city, you are relatively safe. My concern is for the 200 million odd Nigerians that don't have the privilege of living within the city, within Abuja. They are vulnerable to attacks from criminals, from bandits, from kidnappers. And my concern really goes out to them.
So let's talk about intelligence and intelligence gathering. Over the week, it was reported that the Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly stated that there were 44 security reports, which he personally read, and there was failure to act on it. Other Nigerians have also stated that even with the Kaduna Abuja Rail abduction and attack, some Nigerians have reportedly been able to, and this is allegedly, pay ransom and get some people out of it. We don't have the clear details, but this is what's out in the public. And then there was also a documentary, which we can't necessarily talk about, last week, where people and negotiators can have access to some of these bandits. And Nigerians are asking, and this is not in your courts to handle, but Nigerians are asking if all these negotiations are going on, if all these conversations are going on, if people are paying ransom with all the intelligence, because Nigeria doesn't lack intelligence gathering assets and the likes, how come these bandits are not being located and terminated? How come with all the intelligence which is being gathered with the 44 reports, nothing is being done? Is this lack of political will or what?
That's another really good question. And I sympathize with the government on this score. So if you listen to Governor speak, I think the Governor Kaduna also mentioned this. The government knows where these bandits are, where these terrorists are. They know where the camps are. They most probably know where these kidnapped victims are located. The problem is that if you go in hard, you most probably suffer civilian casualties. So I think that sort of is where the problem is. Do you just carpet bomb the forests and kill everybody that's inside, whether it's bandit, terrorists, and innocent civilians, or do you continue trying to negotiate or try to wait for a window of opportunity where you can go in and neutralize the bandits and terrorists, but with minimal civilian casualties? I think that's the struggle. Yes, we do know now that there is literally a black market for kidnapped victims. If you can raise the money, your loved one will be released. It's a difficult one. You also hear people talk about private military contractors or mercenaries. The Goodluck Jonathan administration employed them in the twilight of his administration to great effect. But again, I think the battlefield has changed. So then we had, Boko Haram largely limited to a section of the northeast. Now, like I said, they are everywhere. So you would be hard pressed to bring in 500, private military contractors to come and turn the tide of this conversation. You've seen their deployment across Africa now, in Mali, for instance, where they are failing just because of the scale of that conflict. They also have a record of human rights abuses. And because they are contractors with a commercial incentive, they literally have, motivation to keep the conflicts going because that's how they get paid. I think in Mali, they pay them about $10 million every month. So why would you want that conflict to end? If I were to recommend anything, it would probably be what the Colombians did, where they created a specialist unit, a special counterterrorism unit from the Army, Police, Air Force, whose mandate was simply to prosecute a war against terrorists and drug lords. If we did something...
Like the JTF, which we have?
Exactly. Like the JTF, but, the more dedicated, more specialized, with one clear mandate. If we did that and pump resources into that, and then, sort of like found alliances with other nations to train and equip that force, we might start to see a rollback of the problem. I will urge, though, that people should be realistic in their expectations. This isn't something that will end in a month or 6 months. I predict that this conflict will last for a while before we come to the end of it.
So I think that's a great place to leave it. I want to thank you for coming on this segment to share your thoughts. We hope to get you back on to discuss what your party will do as we either run up to the 2023 elections. We'll go on a quick break. Welcome back. Today we've been discussing about several things affecting Nigerians, especially the security threat in Abuja. Private and federal schools have been asked to close down as a result of imminent threats in the city, and as of yesterday, most schools had shut down. Did you notice how there was no traffic in the morning, how the roads were quite empty in Abuja?
Even in the afternoon, there wasn't so much traffic as usual on a Friday afternoon in Abuja. Considering
the fact that ASU has been on strike since February, and now schools, secondary schools and primary schools are being shut down, what are your thoughts about what's happening, the state of education with all that is going on?
It's quite unfortunate. Well, luckily for the secondary and primary school students, this is the period where they go on break. So that's understandable. But when it comes to the university students that have been home for over 4 months, it's sad. It's sad and it's unfortunate because their counterparts in private schools are going to be moving to the next year, the next level by September, and they're stuck.
It's also troubling the students being at home with no jobs and no school to go. It makes, they say an idle mind is the devil's workshop. Do you think there is a correlation between increased crime rate and unemployment and people not being in school?
I trust our Nigerian students. They don't involve themselves in crime.
we do trust them, but I think it's quite worrisome there. Because I remember the President's Special Assistant on Digital Media, Bashir Ahmed, saying in 2022, President Buhari is going to focus on education, education.
And look at what's happening.
And so I know, for instance, some state governors are saying, how about they wade into the conversation? Do you think this conversation should now be managed by the states, or it should be at the federal government?
If the state governors feel like they can, I feel like you're interviewing me now.
Because it affects all of us.
Yes. If the state governors actually feel like they can do something when it comes to education, why not? Anything to get the students back to school should be done.
Insecurity in the FCT is scary. Do you have any tips for our viewers on how to stay safe?
Look, I don't want to sound like the typical Nigerian, but like I did yesterday, because I hosted the show Kakaki, and I have to wake up very early, like 4-5 a.m. and it was still dark driving, and I was driving out, I was just saying my prayers till I got to the office. And I was serious. I wasn't even like joking about it, because the situation, I don't have the strength, the power to protect myself if anything happens. I rely on security agencies to protect me as a citizen of Nigeria, and I actually have to commend them. They've been doing a good job. It's not easy. It's a lot, but they've been doing a good job. We just have to be alert.
Yeah, and to our viewers at home, it's extremely important that we stay alert. It's important that you report suspicious elements within your community. And if see something, say something. We all have a role to play in ensuring that we are safe and secure. Also, the Nigerian Army, the Nigerian Police Force on social media, which we use a lot, they have been sharing contact numbers for their different police offices. And so please check the Nigerian Police Force social media handles and Nigerian Army for information on how to stay safe and how to stay secure. Avoid going out when it's unnecessary, avoid going out late, crowded gatherings, if it can be avoided, by all means. Your security is also your responsibility, as much as the ultimate care still lies in the hands of the government. On a brighter note, Samuel is getting married today.
Yes, he is.
Congratulations.
Congratulations to Samuel. Big ups. Big ups. We'll be waiting for your invitation. And
Amen. And to our viewers at home, I think that's a good place to leave it. To watch episodes of The Weekend Show, you can check on our YouTube page. It's Weekend Show NG. We're on YouTube. You can also follow us on social media at Weekend Show NG on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. You can follow me on my personal accounts at Andy Maduki on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And Didi?
Yes, at Didi_ on Instagram and Twitter.
And we will be looking forward to bringing on some more interns to learn journalism and broadcasting. So if you're interested in learning and being a part of the team, please send a DM to The Weekend Show NG on Twitter and Instagram. And who knows, you may have a spot on TV, behind the camera, or in front of the camera.
Yes. Thank you so much for staying with us from the top of the hour at 8 up until now.
Do have a blessed weekend. Goodbye.
Bye.